All right, hello, Brian here. This is my 2021/2022 Surron X Black Edition that I got at the very end in December 2021. That's why I say 2021 or 2022, because I think they consider this a 2022. But that's good when ordering parts, like the parts that you saw in my thumbnail for this video, which is why you're here watching this video. And this is definitely going big for this bike, and that's to do with my new 250 millimeter rotor, and I think is that a 200 or 203 millimeter rotor. So this is a lot bigger, and I'm going to show you later in mid part of the video. I'm going to set these down when I take this off, and we're going to look at the size just real quick. A lot of these bikes will just have a solid rotor. This is what's called a two-piece rotor. And for people that are not familiar, hang on real quick. Sorry, I had the dryer going. This is a two-piece rotor. This is the one-piece rotor. What's the advantage of having a two-piece rotor over the one-piece rotor? Well, one disadvantage is this is more expensive. It's a more complicated piece. It's also probably a little heavier in regards to that really thin rotor. This is 2.5 millimeter width. That's the width from here to here. That's a 2 millimeter. So typically you get a little bit more metal on your rotor, and what that means is there's more metal, there's more heat dissipation. It takes longer for that metal to heat up because there's more metal. And so, and vice versa, it may get rid of heat a little bit faster because it has more air touching it and reducing the heat. So that's one thing. So it's a little bit wider. It's definitely taller, so it has more. It's more of a torque advantage, being further out versus further in. It allows for the same amount of brake pad pressure is going to have more force, or it's going to be able to stop the wheel with the same amount of force easier, being further away from the center versus one that's closer. I probably didn't do the right terminology on that or do that justice, but so definitely advantage the bigger you go. I don't think you want to go too big, but this is 250 millimeters, and a lot of people, or in the last year, people have been going to 220 millimeter, and that was like, yeah, 220, and I was the same way. But then I saw this 250 millimeter. There's more to it than that, because I just ordered a 220 millimeter rotor, and it got stolen from porch thieves, along with some other things that I'd purchased in the same box. And yeah, so that got taken away, and I was pretty depressed for a couple of days about that, just really upset that happened. So I was shopping again. I was like, I'm not gonna let them get me down. I'm gonna go ahead and spend more money and go ahead, and I kept seeing this, and I was like, man, and I had an Amazon account and the the Amazon Prime. And you may be asking why a two-piece rotor over a one-piece rotor, and I'm going to try to explain that really quickly too. A rotor or the wheel is never, perfectly true as it spins around, and also too as things heat up, they can warp a little bit and have a little bit of wobble. And so you've got your brake calipers that are mounted in the rear right here, and they're stationary. They're not wobbling. They're locked in place. And so if you have a rotor that wobbles, and then it creates your brake pads to have a little bit of wobble back and forth, it's not as efficient in stopping. And so what the advantage is, and all the big dirt bikes have, or serious motocross bikes, they have two-piece rotors, and what that allows is it gives it a little bit of wobble, because these are the points where it mounts to the center portion that is solid. That's not going to have much wobble to it, but you can get wobble as you go further out. So what the two-piece rotor does is it allows this rotor to have a little bit of flex from left to right, and so if it starts to get out of a little bit of a balance, then instead of creating the brake pads having to wobble, this outer portion of this brake rotor has a little bit of play. So it just ultimately allows for a little bit better braking performance, and that's a great advantage. Does a Surron need a 250 millimeter rotor, diameter rotor? I would say if you ride it pretty hard, yeah, you do. And if you were kind of a motocross person like myself, and you are really hard, can be hard on your brakes, then the advantage probably likely can be seen and felt. I've already got the Shimano upgraded pads, front and rear. Most of your braking, like 80% of your braking, should come from your front, and 15-20% and from your rear. You really don't want to lock up your rear a whole bunch, but I guess if you're going into a berm and you want to rotate the rear end, yeah, I guess you do want to have some ability to lock up your rear end on the dirt. Probably not as much on the street. Now I'm going to install it. That's enough talking. We're going to go ahead and install that, or take that one off. We'll compare the sizes and let you see that, and then I'll mount this one on, and we'll take a look at it, and then I'll go ride it, and I'll give you my opinion. I know it's going to be better. Make sure you just loosen up both sides, and you get plenty of, make sure they're open enough so you don't have any force on your axle to make it more difficult to get out. I just have a little rubber hose that I had just laying around. This will be fine. You don't really want to stick metal in there because you could damage some threads. Just something soft, wood, rubber, plastic. See, now my axle's coming out. Make sure your bike's nice and good on the stand so it doesn't fall off when you take the front wheel off. Pull your axle out. See, my back is starting to transition to wanting to fall back. Just make sure that your bike doesn't fall over. And now you got your tire off. Just remove the bolts from the rotor. I have a little 6-point, or the hex bit. The star bit there, say that correctly, and take those out just like that, and do that for all of them around. All right, here's the comparison between the two front rotors. One on the left is of course the OEM rotor, and the one on the right is the Ripon 250 millimeter moto. And believe it or not, the larger one, the Ripon moto, is not really any heavier than the one on the left. It may be just a little bit, but it's hard to tell holding them in one hand and holding the other in the other hand. So pretty incredible. Should see some big advantages of this using this rotor. Hey everybody, I got to wrap this video up. I've just had to take some extra days of maybe 4 or 5 days before starting the video, and I had to work out some little bit of issues with the fitment and everything on there. But everything is good now. I've been in contact with Ripon, the Ripon Moto, the owner, and they're very, very responsive to emails, and very good customer service. So I think that is an excellent thing to hear about a company that is willing to listen to you and maybe make some changes. But this is for the Fast Ace fork is what I have, and these bikes now have a few different forks, and other people have even different forks than that they're offering, that they're buying. And so it's really difficult to machine the correct bracket to make it work perfectly with every fork, because every fork's a little bit different. So but everything is working out right now. I've got it on there, and I went out and rode it. It's really cold today, and I didn't want to spend that much time outside, so I went up and down the street and broke really hard, put a lot of pressure on the pads and the rotor. But you've got to do that over and over and over again, maybe 12, 15 times, maybe 20 times, so you break in the surface of your rotor, and the pads will scuff that up, and it'll consecutively get better and better as you do that. But I'm very, very happy. It looks great, but if it looks great and it doesn't perform well, then it's not worth the price. But this is a looker, and the performance is just going to be mind-boggling. I can just tell you that. I just know because I raced 250Fs, 450Fs, a lot of different dirt bikes, two-stroke 250s, 125s, and I know that the braking, how important that is. And so when you have a really good brake, and I have a Ducati Monster with the best brakes on the market, and that they have phenomenal brakes. And that's one of the things I love most about my Ducati motorcycle is the front brakes are just unbelievable, the Brembo brakes. But yeah, that's everything. So I wanted just to close this video down, bring this to you. You know, if you're interested or you have thought about going to a bigger rotor, a lot of the popular rotors that were out are the 220 millimeter rotors. This is the 203 millimeter. So this is the factory, and you can see how rigid it is. If you bend this, you ruin this. There's no flex in this, and you don't want any flex. But again, this one, and I have my glove on because you don't want to touch that with your hands and get your oil from your hands and contaminate that surface. But you can see how much sideways flex this has, and that's because it has these floating joints right here all the way around, and some of them have actually springs in there, so it floats a lot better. It has a lot more flexibility in and out. No flex, you know, as it rotates, and exactly what this does. This is what all the big dirt bikes have, and performance race cars and things of that to that extreme. But I've got my KO motor, nano controller, KO RS motor. I've got my race spec bash plate on there. I mean, everything's looking really, really good, and I'm very, very happy how everything has gone, and I can't wait to ride it and start having fun on my Surron again. But that's the video. If you have any questions or you want to share your experience with your 220 millimeter, or if you have a 250 millimeter front rotor, or you just have the stock brakes, I'm going to keep my stock brake on the rear. You just don't use a lot of braking or as much braking. You're not as dependent upon that as your front. They do, Ripon Moto makes a 250 millimeter rear rotor that matches this. And I mean, you ultimately have, really, really good brakes, maybe to do some slide-ins if you're a road guy. If I'm being repetitive, but the Ripon Moto is 2.3 millimeter in width, and the factory rotor is 2.0 millimeters, so it's a little bit wider, and so that helps to give a little bit more substantial feel to the rotor. Also too, and when I pull in my brake now, this is my brake on the front brake, immediately I've got bite. I don't like when you pull a lever, and obviously you could have air in your line too, but immediately it just has a lot of bite to it. You can pull it in, it's really firm. You don't pull it in and have it go in as far as some can. So it's got really good pull on the lever, and that might have partially to do because it's a 2.3 millimeter width rotor versus the 2.0 of the factory. And I just wanted to point this out to you. Feels really, really good. But yeah, that's everything. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate you checking in with me and checking out my Surron content. So catch me on future videos. I'm going to do updates on the performance of that, and updates, and I got some other parts coming too in the mail to replace the ones that got stolen off my porch from some thief that took my package. So other than that, thanks for tuning in again. Have a great day. Bye-bye.